Have you ever noticed that the loudest voice in your life is not the voice of your family, your friends, or your critics? Most people believe that life is shaped by circumstances. They think success depends on luck, opportunities, talent, or the people around them. While these things may influence the path you walk, none of them has as much power over your daily experience as the voice inside your own mind. Before every action, there is a thought. Before every decision, there is an internal conversation. That conversation quietly determines whether you move forward with confidence or remain trapped in hesitation. The words you repeat to yourself become the lens through which you see every challenge, every failure, and every possibility. Think about how often you speak to yourself throughout the day. It happens so naturally that you rarely notice it. When something goes wrong, what is your first response? Do you immediately criticize yourself, or do you encourage yourself to learn and continue? When you face something unfamiliar, do you tell yourself that you are capable, or do you convince yourself that you are not ready? These moments may seem small, but they accumulate over time. Every repeated thought strengthens a pattern, and every pattern eventually becomes part of your identity. Your mind does not always distinguish between truth and repetition. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are weak, your actions begin to reflect weakness. If you constantly remind yourself that you never succeed, your motivation slowly disappears before you even begin. On the other hand, when you consistently remind yourself that every challenge is an opportunity to grow, your behavior changes. You become more willing to take action because your inner voice is supporting you instead of holding you back. Many people wait for confidence before they take action. But confidence is often the result of disciplined thinking. It is built through thousands of quiet conversations that no one else hears. Every time you replace self-doubt with determination, you strengthen your character. Every time you choose patience over panic, you train your mind to remain steady. The strongest people are not those who never experience fear. They are the ones who refuse to let fear become the dominant voice within. Observe your thoughts without immediately believing them. Not every thought deserves your attention. Some thoughts are simply old habits created by past experiences, disappointments, or criticism from others. Carrying those voices into your future only keeps you attached to a version of yourself that no longer exists. You are not required to continue repeating yesterday's story. You have the ability to create a new one through the words you choose today. Every morning presents an opportunity to establish a different direction. Before the world begins demanding your attention, listen to the conversation taking place within. Replace complaints with gratitude. Replace excuses with responsibility. Replace fear with quiet determination. The goal is not to pretend that difficulties do not exist. The goal is to remind yourself that your response to those difficulties will always matter more than the difficulties themselves. A disciplined inner voice creates a disciplined life. It influences the way you stand, the way you speak, the way you handle setbacks, and the way you pursue your goals. Long before others notice a transformation in your actions, it begins in the silence of your own mind. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of the conversations you have with yourself every single day. Every encouraging word becomes a seed planted in your character. Every intentional thought becomes another step toward emotional strength, and every conscious decision to speak with honesty, courage, and self-respect gradually reshapes the person you become. Negativity rarely enters the mind all at once. It arrives quietly, disguised as caution, realism, or self-protection. At first, it is just a single thought telling you that you are not ready. Then it becomes another thought reminding you of a past failure. Before long, those thoughts begin to sound familiar, and familiarity is dangerous because the mind starts accepting repetition as truth. Many people spend years feeding themselves with words that slowly weaken their confidence. without ever questioning where those words came from. Pay attention to the sentences you repeat most often. I can't do this. I'm always behind. Nothing ever works out for me. These phrases may seem harmless when spoken once, but spoken every day, they become instructions that your mind follows. The brain is constantly adapting to what it hears. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are incapable, your actions begin to match that belief. You hesitate before taking opportunities. You avoid challenges because failure feels certain before the journey has even begun. Not every negative thought belongs to you. Some were planted by people who underestimated you. Others were created by painful experiences that convinced you to stop believing in yourself. Perhaps someone once told you that you would never succeed. Perhaps a single mistake made you question your worth. Instead of leaving those moments in the past, you carried them into every new opportunity. The voice that criticizes you today may not even be your own. It may simply be an echo of someone else's fear, disappointment, or judgment. Discipline begins when you stop accepting every thought as a fact. A thought is only a thought until you decide to believe it. Instead of reacting immediately, pause and examine it. Ask yourself whether this thought is helping you grow or keeping you trapped. Ask whether it is based on truth or based on fear. Most of the thoughts that create anxiety lose their power the moment they are questioned. Awareness interrupts the automatic cycle that has controlled your mind for years. Your attention is like water. Whatever you continuously pour it into will grow stronger. If you feed resentment, resentment expands. If you feed fear, fear becomes more convincing. If you constantly replay painful memories, your mind begins living in a past that no longer exists. Every moment spent nourishing negativity steals energy from the life you are trying to build. You cannot expect peace while continuously giving your attention to thoughts that produce chaos. This does not mean pretending that life is always easy. Difficult moments are unavoidable. Disappointment, rejection, and uncertainty are part of every meaningful journey. The difference lies in how you respond after those experiences. One person allows failure to become an identity. Another sees it as a lesson. The event may be the same, but the conversation inside their minds leads them in completely different directions. Strength is not created by avoiding hardship. It is created by refusing to let hardship define who you are. Begin replacing destructive patterns with intentional ones. When your mind says, I always fail, remind yourself that every skill is developed through repeated effort. When it says, I'm not good enough, answer with the commitment to become better instead of accepting defeat. Speak to yourself with honesty, but never with cruelty. There is a difference between recognizing your weaknesses and attacking your worth. One creates growth, while the other destroys motivation. Protect your mind as carefully as you protect your body. You would not knowingly consume food that slowly poisons your health, yet many people consume negative thoughts every hour without resistance. Every encouraging word you choose becomes nourishment for your character. Every hopeful perspective strengthens your resilience. Every conscious decision to reject unnecessary self-criticism clears space for confidence, patience, discipline, and the quiet belief that you are capable of becoming far more than your past has ever suggested. Every great transformation begins with a single decision, the decision to stop allowing doubt to speak louder than purpose. Doubt will always find reasons to convince you that the timing is wrong, that you are not prepared, or that someone else is more capable. It does not need evidence to survive. It only needs your attention. The more you listen to it, the more powerful it becomes. But purpose speaks differently. It does not promise an easy road. It simply reminds you why you started and why continuing matters more than temporary discomfort. The way you speak to yourself determines which voice grows stronger. If every challenge is met with thoughts like, I can't handle this, your mind begins searching for excuses instead of solutions. Your energy shifts from taking action to avoiding failure. Over time, hesitation becomes a habit. Opportunities pass by, not because you lack ability, but because your own words convince you to remain where it feels safe. A life controlled by doubt is often a life filled with regret, because the greatest losses are not always failures. Sometimes they are the chances you never took. Purposeful words create a completely different direction. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What can I learn?" Instead of saying, "I'm not ready," remind yourself, "I become ready by taking the first step." This is not about pretending to be fearless. Fear may still exist, but it no longer controls the conversation. Courage is built when your purpose becomes louder than your uncertainty. Every encouraging sentence you repeat to yourself becomes another brick in the foundation of a stronger mindset. Your mind is constantly listening to the language you use. It records your beliefs and shapes your behavior around them. If you repeatedly describe yourself as weak, your actions slowly begin reflecting weakness. If you consistently remind yourself that you are disciplined, patient, and capable of learning, your choices gradually align with those qualities. Identity is influenced by repetition. You become the person you continuously describe yourself to be. This is why careless words can quietly limit your future, while intentional words can slowly expand it. There will be moments when progress feels invisible. You will work hard without immediate results. You will question whether your effort is making any difference. During those moments, your inner dialogue becomes more important than external circumstances. A person who constantly encourages themselves continues moving, even when the destination cannot yet be seen. A person who feeds doubt often stops only a few steps before a breakthrough. The difference is rarely talent. It is the conversation happening inside the mind, when no one else is watching. Purposeful self-talk is not empty motivation. It is a commitment to truth. Tell yourself that you are responsible for your actions. Tell yourself that every mistake is a lesson instead of a life sentence. Tell yourself that discipline is more reliable than fleeting emotions. These statements are not fantasies. They are principles that direct your attention toward growth instead of limitation. They remind you that your future depends less on how you feel today and more on the choices you continue making despite those feelings. Whenever doubt appears, do not fight it with anger. Observe it calmly and answer it with intention. Let every fearful thought be met with patience. Let every excuse be replaced by responsibility. Let every moment of uncertainty become an opportunity to practice belief in yourself. The goal is not to silence every negative thought forever. The goal is to ensure that your purpose always has the final word. Every disciplined response strengthens your confidence. Every intentional affirmation reinforces your resilience, and every conscious choice to speak with clarity, determination, and self-respect prepares your mind to face challenges with unwavering focus and quiet inner strength. Changing the way you speak to yourself does not require months of preparation or a perfect moment. It begins the instant you become intentional with your words. The next 3 days are not about becoming a completely different person. They are about interrupting years of unconscious habits and replacing them with conversations that build strength instead of weakness. 3 days may seem short, but they are long enough to prove that your mind can be trained. Every habit begins with a single repetition, and every repetition shapes the person you are becoming. When you wake up in the morning, resist the urge to immediately think about everything that could go wrong. Before checking your phone, before worrying about responsibilities, and before allowing outside voices to influence your mood, speak to yourself with purpose. Tell yourself that today is another opportunity to grow. Remind yourself that your value is not determined by yesterday's mistakes. Say that you will meet every challenge with patience and every difficulty with discipline. These are not magical words that erase problems, but they prepare your mind to face those problems with greater clarity. Throughout the day, pay close attention to your internal reactions. The moment something unexpected happens, notice the first sentence that appears in your mind. Does it encourage you, or does it discourage you? If you make a mistake, avoid saying, "I always ruin everything." Instead, remind yourself that mistakes are part of learning. If you feel tired, do not immediately conclude that you are incapable. Acknowledge your fatigue without allowing it to define your potential. Your thoughts should describe your current situation, not become permanent labels for who you are. This practice requires awareness more than effort. Most people never notice how often they criticize themselves because those thoughts have become automatic. For these 3 days, slow down enough to hear them. Every negative statement is an opportunity to replace an old habit with a new one. Every moment of self-judgment is an invitation to choose understanding instead of condemnation. The goal is not to become unrealistically positive. The goal is to become consciously supportive, speaking to yourself as someone who is committed to growth, rather than trapped by perfection. Be especially mindful during difficult moments. It is easy to encourage yourself when everything is going well. The true test comes when plans change, when obstacles appear, or when disappointment arrives without warning. During those moments, remind yourself that temporary setbacks do not define your future. Say, "I will remain calm." Say, "I will learn from this." Say, "I have overcome challenges before, and I can face this one as well." Every sentence spoken with intention becomes a quiet act of discipline. Instead of allowing emotions to control your words, let your values guide them. As the 3 days continue, you may notice subtle changes. You may respond with more patience instead of frustration. You may begin taking action sooner because fear no longer dominates your thinking. Small victories that once went unnoticed will start becoming visible because your attention shifts from failure to progress. Confidence does not suddenly appear from nowhere. It grows through repeated evidence that you can trust yourself to respond wisely, even when circumstances remain uncertain. Remember that your inner conversation is always shaping your outer behavior. Every encouraging thought influences your posture, your decisions, your persistence, and your ability to remain focused. The words you choose become instructions that your mind follows. If those instructions are filled with blame, hesitation, and fear, your actions will reflect them. If those instructions are rooted in responsibility, patience, courage, and self-respect, your actions will gradually begin reflecting those qualities. By practicing this conversation consistently for just 3 days, you begin teaching your mind a new pattern, replacing automatic negativity with deliberate strength, steady confidence, quiet resilience, and the unwavering belief that growth is always possible through disciplined thought and intentional action. Your mind is one of the greatest tools you possess, but it can also become your greatest obstacle if you allow it to operate without awareness. Most people do not lose control of their lives because of external circumstances. They lose control because they never learn to guide their own thoughts. The mind naturally wanders. It revisits painful memories, imagines fearful futures, compares endlessly, and creates stories that may never become reality. If you follow every thought without question, your emotions will rise and fall with whatever appears in your mind. True discipline begins when you realize that you do not have to obey every thought simply because it exists. Imagine standing beside a busy road, watching countless vehicles pass by. You do not chase every car because you understand that they are simply passing through. Thoughts should be treated the same way. Some are useful, while others are temporary distractions. Yet many people climb into every passing thought without realizing where it is taking them. A single moment of worry becomes hours of anxiety. One criticism becomes proof that they are not good enough. One mistake becomes evidence that they will never succeed. The problem is not the appearance of these thoughts. The problem is the decision to believe them without examination. Learning to observe your mind creates a powerful distance between you and your emotions. Instead of reacting immediately, pause for a moment. Ask yourself whether this thought deserves your energy. Ask whether it is helping you become stronger or simply repeating an old pattern. The simple act of observing interrupts the automatic cycle that keeps so many people trapped. You begin to understand that your thoughts are experiences, not commands. They can appear, exist for a moment, and disappear without controlling your actions. Many people spend years trying to control the outside world while neglecting the world within. They want better relationships, greater success, more confidence, and lasting peace, but they continue allowing fear, anger, and self-doubt to direct their decisions. No external achievement can compensate for an undisciplined mind. Even after reaching important goals, the same uncontrolled thoughts return, creating new reasons for dissatisfaction. Lasting change begins inside because every external result is influenced by the quality of your internal state. Control does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending that difficult thoughts never arise. It means refusing to become their prisoner. You may feel afraid before taking an important step, but fear does not have to decide whether you move forward. You may feel discouraged after experiencing failure, but discouragement does not have to become your identity. Every emotion carries information, but none of them should become the ruler of your life. Wisdom comes from listening without surrendering your direction. Discipline is strengthened through countless ordinary moments. It is choosing patience instead of immediate reaction. It is remaining calm when frustration demands a response. It is taking one more step, even when motivation has disappeared. Every small decision trains the mind. Just as repeated physical exercise strengthens the body, repeated mental discipline strengthens your ability to remain steady under pressure. The person who practices self-control during small challenges becomes prepared for much greater ones. Whenever your mind begins creating stories filled with fear, pause before accepting them. Return your attention to what is real in the present moment. Breathe slowly. Observe your surroundings. Focus on the action that needs to be taken now, instead of becoming overwhelmed by imagined outcomes. The future is shaped by the choices you make in this moment, not by the fears you repeatedly entertain. Every moment of awareness weakens old habits and strengthens your ability to choose wisely. Your greatest freedom is not found in controlling every situation around you. It is found in controlling the way you respond to whatever life places before you. A disciplined mind remains clear when others become overwhelmed. It remains patient when circumstances become uncertain. It continues moving with purpose, even when emotions fluctuate. The more consistently you guide your thoughts instead of chasing them, the more peaceful, focused, resilient, and unshakable you become, allowing your actions to reflect wisdom rather than impulse, intention rather than habit, and quiet inner strength rather than temporary emotional reactions. The person you become in the future is being shaped by the conversations you have with yourself today. Every belief you repeat, every thought you entertain, and every word you choose slowly builds the foundation of your character. Most people imagine that transformation happens through one extraordinary event, but lasting change is almost always the result of ordinary moments, repeated with intention. Your future is not created by chance. It is created by the habits you practice, the standards you maintain, and the voice you allow to guide your actions every single day. Imagine meeting the version of yourself 5 years from now. That person is calmer under pressure, more disciplined with time, stronger in difficult situations, and confident without needing constant approval. That future version of you did not appear overnight. They became who they are because they made thousands of small choices that others ignored. They chose consistency over comfort. They chose patience over frustration. They chose responsibility instead of excuses. Most importantly, they learn to speak to themselves in a way that encourages growth instead of reinforcing limitation. Every time you tell yourself that you are incapable, you place another obstacle between yourself and the person you could become. Every time you decide that your past defines your future, you close the door on possibilities that have not even had the chance to exist. Your history may explain where you are today, but it does not have the authority to decide where you will be tomorrow. The words you choose in this moment are far more powerful than the mistakes you made years ago, because they influence the decisions you are about to make. Becoming the person your future needs requires honesty. Honest self-talk does not ignore weaknesses, but it also refuses to turn weaknesses into permanent identities. There is a difference between saying, "I need to improve," and saying, "I will never be enough." One statement creates action. The other creates surrender. Speak to yourself in ways that inspire responsibility while protecting your self-respect. Growth begins when you acknowledge your current reality without allowing it to limit your vision. There will be days when progress feels invisible. You may work diligently without immediate recognition. You may continue improving while others fail to notice the changes. During those moments, remember that the strongest roots grow beneath the surface before anyone sees the tree. Your future depends less on visible success today and more on your willingness to remain faithful to the process. Every disciplined choice strengthens qualities that cannot always be measured immediately, but become impossible to ignore over time. The future version of yourself is waiting for today's decisions. That person needs you to remain focused when distractions appear. They need you to stay patient when results arrive slowly. They need you to continue believing in your purpose, even when circumstances become uncertain. Every encouraging sentence you speak becomes another step toward becoming someone who can handle greater responsibility, greater opportunities, and greater challenges with wisdom and stability. Do not wait until you feel completely confident before treating yourself with respect. Confidence grows through repeated acts of self-trust. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens your belief that you are dependable. Every difficult task you complete reminds you that discipline is more reliable than temporary motivation. Every challenge you face without giving up proves that resilience is developed through action rather than comfort. These quiet victories gradually reshape your identity until perseverance becomes your natural response instead of hesitation. Your future does not require perfection. It requires commitment. It requires the courage to continue learning after mistakes, the humility to accept correction without losing confidence, and the discipline to keep moving when emotions become unpredictable. Speak to yourself as the person you are becoming, not as the person you fear remaining. Let every word reflect the strength you wish to build, the wisdom you seek to develop, and the character you are determined to embody. Day after day, those conversations become your habits become your identity shapes your destiny, and your destiny reflects the quiet decisions you made when no one else was listening, guided by discipline, purpose, resilience, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to becoming the strongest version of yourself. Focus only on changing one conversation, the one happening inside you, because once that conversation changes, everything else begins to follow.